Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And today we're looking at Kid Confidence by Eileen Kennedy Moore and Michelle Borba. And, we're really going to be trying to figure out how to help kids build real self-esteem.
Yes.
And I got to say, like, the introduction to this book was a little bit mind-blowing to me.
Okay.
It turns out that all this, you're amazing, you can do anything, I kind of praise.
Right.
It might actually be doing more harm than good.
Yeah, there's a real misconception, I think,
Hmm.
that just constantly praising kids is going to make them more confident.
Right.
But the book really dives into the research showing that this can backfire in a lot of ways.
So it's more than just, like praise, like a nice drawing they did or something like that. This is
Yeah.
like a whole movement, right?
Precisely.
They talk about like a task force that was created in California
Yeah.
back in the 80s that was all about boosting self-esteem.
Exactly. So the California Task Force really believed that raising self-esteem could solve all sorts of societal problems, from
Wow.
crime to teen pregnancy. The idea was that if kids just felt good about themselves, they would make better choices.
Makes sense on the surface level, right?
Yeah, totally.
But then later research kind of challenged that whole idea.
It did, yeah. There were researchers like Jean Twenge who found that focusing too much on self-esteem might have actually contributed to a generation that's more self-absorbed and less empathetic.
Hmm.
And they even found links to increased anxiety and depression.
Wow. That's a pretty big turnaround.
It is.
So what happened? Where did the self-esteem movement go wrong?
Well, one of the things was that, this focus on feeling good about yourself sometimes tipped over into narcissism.
Right.
It's one thing to have healthy self-esteem. It's another thing to believe that you're superior to everyone else.
So instead of building genuine confidence, some kids just ended up with this kind of fragile sense of self-worth
Exactly.
that was totally dependent on external validation.
Absolutely. And that leads to all sorts of unhealthy behaviors.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The book gives this really vivid example of a student who's worried about failing a test. So instead of studying harder or seeking help, she procrastinates so that she has an excuse if she does poorly.
Oh, wow.
It's called self-handicapping.
That's so interesting because it's like trying to protect kids from failure
Yeah.
can actually set them up for bigger struggles later on.
Yeah, they're so focused on looking good that they avoid challenges and they miss opportunities for real growth.
So if simply trying to boost self-esteem isn't the answer, what is? What can parents actually do to help their kids develop that genuine, unshakable confidence?
Well, here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
The book talks about the crucial role of something you might not expect,
Okay.
shame,
Oh, yeah.
and how it's different from guilt.
Yeah, that was a label moment for me in the book because I think I always kind of lump those two together.
Right.
But they're totally different.
That shame is that feeling of being inherently bad or flawed, like I am a bad person.
Right. I am bad.
Exactly.
As opposed to like,
And guilt is more about feeling bad about a specific action.
I did a bad thing.
Precisely.
Okay.
And here's the kicker. Research consistently shows a really strong link between shame and low self-esteem,
Okay.
while guilt is actually not linked.
So guilt can actually be a good thing.
In a way, yes.
Okay.
If we can help kids understand that everyone makes mistakes
Right.
and that it's okay to feel bad about those actions
Right.
without labeling themselves as bad people,
Right.
we're setting them up for a much healthier relationship with themselves.
Totally.
And that's a key part of real confidence.
So it's about helping them separate their actions
Yeah.
from their inherent worth.
Yes,
You can mess up without being a mess.
exactly. And here's another important point the book makes. It's not just about managing our kids' shame and guilt. It's about managing our own as parents.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
The book talks about this mom who felt so ashamed when her daughter hit another child at school. And she was so caught up in her own shame that she couldn't even respond effectively to her daughter's behavior.
That's a perfect example. When we're flooded with our own shame, it's harder to parent from a place of understanding and compassion.
It's a good reminder that we have to model the kind of self-compassion and resilience we want to see in our kids.
Exactly.
Less, I'm a terrible parent, and more, okay, I messed up. What can I learn from this?
Exactly. Now, to bring this back to building kid confidence.
Okay.
Kid confidence offers this framework based on 3 C's: connection, competence, and choice.
The 3 C's.
3 C's.
I love how clear and actionable this book is, so let's break those down.
Okay.
Starting with connection.
Okay, so connection is all about helping kids develop strong, healthy relationships, not just with their parents, but also with siblings and friends.
Okay.
Feeling loved, accepted, and understood is a huge confidence booster.
Makes total sense. And the book really digs into the dynamics of sibling relationships,
Yeah.
which, let's face it, can be a bit of a roller coaster. It talks about how siblings often compare themselves to each other,
Yeah.
which can be really damaging to their self-esteem.
Yes. And one thing the book makes very clear, parents should never compare siblings out loud.
Right. Like in that story about Chloe and Nathan.
Yes.
The siblings who are constantly arguing about their achievements.
Right.
All those comparisons, even seemingly positive ones,
Yes.
can create distance between siblings and just fuel those feelings of inadequacy.
So instead of focusing on who's better at what the book suggests, identifying family similarities and value,
Wow, I love that.
those things that put everyone together.
Yeah, it shifts the focus from competition to a shared sense of belonging.
Exactly.
And that strong foundation within the family can really help kids navigate the challenges of friendships outside the home.
Absolutely.
Which, let's be honest, can be tough,
Yeah.
even for kids who seem well-liked.
Absolutely. The book highlights that just because a child has a good reputation doesn't mean they automatically have close friends or feel confident in their social interactions.
Yeah, you might be surprised to learn that even well-liked kids can struggle with friendships. Like Marissa in the book, who was convinced that nobody likes me just because she wasn't always included in every game at recess.
Poor Marissa.
Right.
Yeah, her story shows how sensitive kids can be to perceived rejection, even when it's not intentional.
So how can we as parents help kids navigate those tricky friendship dynamics?
The book suggests some really practical strategies like teaching kids how to be assertive,
Okay.
to communicate their needs and boundaries,
Right?
and to break free from possessiveness.
Oh, okay.
It's about finding that balance between reaching out and giving friends space to reciprocate.
It's like learning the dance of friendship.
Exactly. And it all ties back to that core idea of shifting from self-focus to a more generous outward focus.
Okay.
Instead of worrying about what if they don't like me,
Yeah,
encourage kids to think about what can I offer to make this friendship awesome.
I love that reframing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered connection.
Yes.
What about the second C, competence?
So competence is all about encouraging kids to embrace effort and develop a can-do attitude.
Okay.
You know, that grit we hear so much about.
Like Lila, who wanted to quit soccer because she felt inadequate.
Yes, Lila's story shows how kids with low self-esteem often give up easily
Right.
because they see any struggle as a sign of personal failure.
Yeah.
They get stuck in what's called a fixed mindset,
Okay.
believing that their abilities are set in stone.
So how do we help them shift to a growth mindset?
Yes.
That belief that they can improve with effort and practice.
One of the most effective strategies is praising effort and strategies rather than just outcomes or abilities.
So instead of, you're so smart, it's, wow, you came up with such a clever strategy to solve that problem.
Exactly. Because remember, as we talked about earlier, just showering kids with empty praise
Right.
doesn't build genuine confidence.
Right.
It often makes them more anxious about maintaining that high level of performance.
Right.
When we focus on their efforts and strategies, we're reinforcing the idea that they have control over their growth, and that's incredibly empowering.
It's about teaching them that setbacks are just temporary bumps in the road, not a reflection of their worth.
Exactly.
They can learn and grow from their mistakes.
Yes.
Okay, so connection and competence. Those are two powerful tools for building real self-esteem.
Yeah.
But there's one more C to explore, choice.
Yeah.
And I think this one might surprise some listeners.
It might, because we usually associate choice with freedom and empowerment.
Right.
But for kids with low self-esteem,
Yeah.
making choices, even small ones,
Yeah.
can actually be a source of anxiety and stress.
So we've seen how connection and competence are vital, but there's this third piece of the puzzle that often gets overlooked.
Yeah.
This idea that choice can be stressful. It sounds counterintuitive.
It can be. Think about it when you're already unsure of yourself. The pressure to make the right choice can feel overwhelming. The book shares this really poignant story about Stacy, who completely freezes up when her grandma tries to buy her a bracelet for her birthday.
Oh, right. Stacy gets overwhelmed by choosing a bracelet and ends up in tears. It seems like such a small thing,
Yeah.
but for her, it's this huge anxiety-provoking decision.
Exactly. A great example of how even seemingly simple choices can trigger those feelings of inadequacy and helplessness in kids who struggle with self-doubt. They're so worried about making the wrong choice and disappointing others or themselves.
So what can we do to help kids like Stacy navigate choices big or small without getting bogged down by all that self-doubt?
One key strategy from the book is recognizing and managing what's called rumination, Rumination is that endless cycle of overthinking and worrying about the past or future. It's like a hamster wheel of negative thoughts.
Oh, I know that hamster wheel all too well, and it can be exhausting, especially for kids who are already prone to self-criticism.
Exactly. The book suggests helping kids identify those unhelpful thought patterns and teaching them to break free with techniques like asking useful questions and finding healthy distractions. Instead of, why am I so bad at this? It's about shifting their focus to, okay, what's one small step I can take right now?
It's about empowering them to take action, even if it's just a tiny step forward, and realizing that they don't have to have all the answers right away.
Right, and the book makes this other interesting point. Sometimes there isn't one right answer, especially with those tough choices. It's not about finding the perfect solution. It's about making a choice that aligns with your values.
I love that we get to be the authors of our own lives, but it's not always easy for kids to embrace that kind of freedom, especially when they're struggling with self-doubt.
You're absolutely right, and that's why it's so important for us as parents to have faith in their growing ability to cope. Resist the urge to jump in and rescue them every time they encounter a challenge. Create space for them to experiment, make mistakes, and learn from those experiences.
Trust them to figure things out, even if it gets a little messy. It's about progress, not perfection, right?
Exactly, and celebrate those small victories along the way. Every time a child successfully navigates a choice, big or small, they're building that inner sense of, I can do this.
And that's what real confidence is all about. Okay, so we've covered the three C's: connection, competence, and choice. But kid confidence also delves into some other really fascinating areas related to kid confidence, things that many parents will likely encounter at some point.
Absolutely, like the challenge of feeling different.
Right.
That feeling of not quite fitting in, which can be especially tough for kids who are already struggling with self-esteem.
Like Adam in the book, who felt like a total outsider at his new school because he wasn't into sports like all the other boys. So many kids can relate to that feeling of not belonging, whether it's about their appearance, interests, background, or something else entirely.
Adam's story is a great example of how that feeling of not sitting in can really impact a child's self-esteem. And it often leads to this self-fulfilling prophecy. They believe they don't belong, so they withdraw from social interactions and then, of course, end up feeling even more isolated.
It's a vicious cycle. So how do we help kids like Adam embrace their uniqueness and find their tribe, so to speak? The book emphasizes the importance of challenging those negative assumptions they have about what it means to be different.
Exactly. Help them understand that those messages about what's normal and desirable are often arbitrary and constantly changing. Encourage them to develop their own internal compass, their own values, so they can make choices about when to adapt to a group and when to stand apart.
Love that. It's about empowering them to define themselves, not letting society or their peers define them.
Right? And, another powerful tool here is media literacy, helping kids critically evaluate those messages they're constantly bombarded with about appearance, popularity, and all that.
That's so important in today's world with social media and all. It's easy to get caught up in those comparisons and feel like everyone else is so much cooler than me.
It is, and that's why finding a sense of belonging, finding your community is so crucial. The book suggests looking beyond traditional social groups and encouraging kids to explore different activities and communities that might resonate with their unique interests.
Whether it's a robotics club, a drama group, a volunteer organization, or something else entirely, it's about finding that space where they can connect with others who share their passions or understand their challenges.
It's about walking into a room and feeling that sense of, I'm home, like you truly belong, and that feeling of belonging can be incredibly empowering. Of course, even with a strong sense of connection and belonging, kids are still going to encounter meanness. It's just a part of life.
Unfortunately, that's true. And for kids with low self-esteem, those experiences can be particularly hurtful. The book makes an important distinction between bullying and general meanness.
Yes, bullying isn't just about being unkind. It involves a power dynamic where one person or group intentionally targets someone perceived as weaker. And that power dynamic makes it even harder for kids who are already struggling with self-doubt to stand up for themselves.
So what can parents do to help kids navigate those situations?
The book emphasizes that there's no one-size-fits-all approach. It's about finding that balance between empowering our kids to handle things themselves and stepping in when necessary to keep them safe. And being sensitive to how different kids respond to meanness. Some might internalize those hurtful comments, while others might become withdrawn or even lash out.
It's about tailoring our support to their unique needs and temperament. and teaching them how to be assertive to communicate their boundaries and stand up for themselves in a way that's respectful but firm.
Absolutely. Assertiveness is a key life skill, especially for kids who are targeted because they're perceived as easy targets. It's about finding that voice that says, hey, this isn't okay, and I'm not going to tolerate it. And of course, we have to talk about cyberbullying, which has become such a pervasive problem.
It feels like a whole other beast these days.
It's crucial to have those open, honest conversations with our kids about online safety and etiquette, setting clear boundaries and letting them know that we're always there to support them if they encounter something that feels unsafe or hurtful.
Creating that safe space for them to come to us if they're ever struggling. As we've been talking about all these different aspects of kid confidence, from managing shame to handling bullying, I keep coming back to this idea of self-focus. It seems like so much of the struggle for kids with low self-esteem comes from that constant inner critic, that negative self-talk.
You're so right. And that's where the book introduces this incredibly insightful concept of the quiet ego.
Yes, the quiet ego. This was a huge aha moment for me, this totally reframing how I think about self-esteem. It's not about being the best. It's about being connected and compassionate.
It really is a powerful shift in perspective. A quiet ego is essentially about turning down the volume of that inner critic, that constant self-judgment, and embracing a more compassionate, connected way of being in the world.
Yeah. So it's not about erasing the ego altogether. It's about quieting that inner critic and fostering a more connected, compassionate way of being.
Precisely. And the book talks about how we can cultivate this quiet ego state through experiences like flow, compassion, elevation, and awe.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's break those down. What is flow?
Flow is that state of complete absorption
Hmm.
in an activity where you lose track of time and feel a sense of effortless joy and mastery. It's those moments when you're so engrossed in what you're doing that everything else fades away.
Oh, I love those moments, like when I'm writing or lost in a good book. And it's amazing to see kids in that flow state too, whether they're building with Legos, drawing, playing an instrument, or whatever lights them up. It's like they're completely in the zone.
Exactly. And those experiences are not only enjoyable, but they also help kids develop a sense of competence and self-efficacy, which are, of course, key components of real confidence. Now, compassion, as the book explains, is about cultivating that deep empathy and concern for others. It's about moving beyond self-focus and recognizing that we're all interconnected.
Teaching kids to see beyond their own needs and care about the well-being of others. And it's not about being a pushover. It's about recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every human being.
Absolutely, and empowering kids to act in ways that promote kindness and justice. Now, elevation, as the book describes it, is that feeling of being uplifted and inspired by witnessing acts of goodness, generosity, or courage.
Or like when you see someone go out of their way to help a stranger, or when you hear a story about someone overcoming incredible odds, those stories can be so powerful.
They can, and they remind us that even amidst all the darkness and negativity in the world, there's still so much beauty and goodness. And finally, there's awe, those moments when we encounter something so vast and magnificent that it expands our sense of wonder and possibility.
Awe is like that feeling of being completely humbled and amazed by the beauty of nature or the vastness of the universe. It's about recognizing that we're just a small part of something much bigger than ourselves.
Beautifully put. And those experiences of awe can help us shift from a self-centered perspective to a more expansive, interconnected view of the world. And that shift can be incredibly liberating.
So these quiet ego states flow compassion, elevation, and awe. They offer a pathway to building real self-esteem, not through self-aggrandizement or self-promotion, but through a deeper understanding of our interconnectedness with others and the world around us.
Exactly. It's about cultivating that quiet confidence that comes from knowing that we're enough just as we are, and recognizing that true happiness and fulfillment come not from chasing external validation, but from living a life aligned with our values and connected to something larger than ourselves.
What a powerful message to share with our kids. So we've explored the 3 C's of kid confidence, the challenges of feeling different, navigating meanness, and this incredible concept of the quiet ego.
And what's so exciting is that all these ideas are interwoven. They're not separate strategies. They're all part of a holistic approach to helping kids develop real lasting self-esteem.
It feels like we're creating this incredible roadmap for raising confident kids, building a foundation of connection and belonging, empowering them to embrace effort and growth, encouraging them to make choices that align with their values, all while cultivating that quiet confidence that comes from a less self-focused, more compassionate way of being in the world.
You've captured it perfectly. And it's important to remember, this is a journey, not a destination.
Well,
There will be ups and downs, moments of self-doubt and moments of triumph.
it's all about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And it's about celebrating those small wins along the way, those moments when our kids demonstrate resilience, kindness, or courage, because those moments, those glimpses of their quiet ego shining through are what give us hope for the future.
They really do. As we wrap up this deep dive into kid confidence, I'm feeling so much more equipped to help my own child navigate the world with confidence and compassion.
That's wonderful to hear. And remember, it starts with those small changes in our own parenting, shifting from a focus on external validation to a deeper appreciation for effort, resilience, and connection, creating a home environment where kids feel safe to be themselves, to make mistakes, and to grow.
It's about fostering that quiet ego, not just in our kids, but in ourselves as well.
Absolutely. And trusting that our kids have the inner strength to thrive even when things get tough.
So, to all of you listening out there, as you continue on your own parenting journey, remember that real self-esteem isn't about being perfect or always feeling good. It's about developing that quiet ego that allows your kids to navigate challenges with resilience and compassion.
And it's about cherishing those moments when they seem most free from self-consciousness, whether they're lost in play, absorbed in a creative project, or connecting with others in a meaningful way.
Those are the moments that remind us why we do this crazy, beautiful thing called parenting, those glimpses of their true selves shining through.
And they remind us that even small changes in our parenting can make a world of difference in helping our kids develop that genuine, unshakable confidence that will serve them well throughout their lives.
So keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in the power of connection, competence, and choice.
And most importantly, keep cherishing those precious moments with your little ones.
Until next time, fellow deep divers.